Hey everybody, this is Herschel from High School Top 200, and this video is more about a lot of questions that have been asked, sort of even from my perspective of the sort of the differences between um, New Zealand players as well as South African players, and so and what I think the level is between the two countries, and so. Um, Having Paarl boys here is a massive, I think, a massive bridge for the two countries on this level to come together, and for us to be able to, I guess, give us a gauge on where both of the countries are. I've been watching South African schoolboy rugby for a year and a bit now, after being introduced by a couple of South African guys that do this, basically the same thing that I do over there in South Africa. So I've been watching the schools for a while, and I think that so like the way that I broke it down was sort of by players, by schools, by rankings, as well as the competition that they have playing against them. So, for example, and so for all of you South Africans, because I know a lot of South Africans out there, they have South Africa has a massive following of All Black fans and New Zealand rugby. So if you're one of those guys, this one will be a good one to listen to, because you're probably going to be seeing a lot of these guys, some of these guys that I talk about in Super 15, in Super Rugby, and also maybe All Blacks at some point. So this is a way that I kind of looked at it. So at first I looked at it in terms of just teams alone. Now Paarl boys has come and they've beaten Sacred Heart. They got rid of Gisborne Boys and also Nelson College way too easily, and they play Christchurch today. So while I'm recording this, Christchurch is probably going to be running. They'll probably be warming up right now. So, and just so that you guys know, I don't think Christchurch is going to win, but I don't think that they're going to be cleaned out. I think Paarl boys is going to win. Like I said from the beginning, I thought Paarl boys was going to come in and not lose a game here, and that Sacred Heart will be their hardest test. So the way I looked at it here was that I looked at it as teams and how much teams that we have. So I still think Hastings is a bit better than Paarl boys, and I think Hastings boys, from what I have seen, and that's from watching Paarl boys, Effie's from Pretoria, also Grays, and also Palm Grim. I watched some of their games as well. Borland was another one that I watched. Kingswood College was another one that I watched as well. And Grays High School, because I got mixed up between Grays College and Grays High School. So I watched both of them, and I've realized that they were different. But from watching the teams that I watched, and knowing what teams that we have here, out of everybody together, I think Hastings would be the best team out of the both countries, as well as Australia being put in this as well, because I know what Australia has too. So I think Hastings is probably the best out of the three countries. And then I would put either Paarl boys, St. Kitts, Hamilton boys. From what I know, Paul Grimm is there. Dale College boys is there as well, which is from King Williamstown. And then Sacred Heart was there. See, because the thing with Sacred Heart is that Sacred Heart, even though that they lost, I think it was 24 or 28-12, they had their players missing. So they had Tolfa missing, they had AJ missing in the back line. I think Shea should have moved to first five. Lemeki was ripping up from the back. So for me, I don't think the Sacred Heart would have won even with a full team. But I do think that the score would have been more more closer within 6 points, 5 points, something like that. Not the score that we got. I still think Paarl boys would have won. So get that straight. But I do think that we have a better team. I do think that South Africa has more better teams. I think that they have more better teams, obviously, because they have more better players. I think New Zealand has better players. I just think that they have more better players than us. If we were to make a New Zealand secondary schools, we would be able to fill probably 3 or 4 teams that were really, really good and really, really competitive. South Africa, they could do 8 to 10 teams, and they'll be really, really good and really, really competitive. So they'll have a lot more to choose from, and they just have a lot more better players than what we have. I just think that we probably have maybe a few of the best players better than them, but I think that they have more of it. So if we were to have a challenge of 7 teams versus 7, we'll probably only win 3 of those. They'll probably win more of them. And I sort of looked at it even that way as well. So I looked at it from a team's perspective of how many teams I thought were better. I think we have the best team. I just think that if we made the top 25, we would have way more South African teams than we would New Zealand teams. I think South Africa will probably I think New Zealand will probably only have 7 of those spots, maybe 8, and then they'll have the rest of what's left of the top 25. And that's not to say that we're useless. That's just to say that they have more better players. That's all it really is. I think that we have the best players. I just think that they have more of them. We'll have maybe 6 good locks, 6 to 8 good locks, whereas they would have 12 to 13 good locks, and that will be really, really competitive. So it's kind of like that, and that's kind of the way that I see it, and the way that I looked at it at a point of view where we could actually gauge in something where it looks like it's even, or it looks like it's that we're able to sort of judge one with the other. So what I did, and the way that I thought about it was that I looked at the Paarl boys that came, and I looked at them and I thought, well, if this is their best team, I would say out of this being the best team in South Africa, they would probably have about 3 or 4 South African secondary school players. So I looked at the ones that I thought, okay, those guys would be the ones. So I looked at the hooker. I thought he was one. I thought the number 1 prop could be one. I thought the number 5 lock, who also played on the open side, would be one. I looked at the first 5, and then I looked at the winger, the black kid, the winger with the white headgear. He was the black kid who scored the mean try on down the sideline, and then the other one was the fullback, the black fullback that set up the mean try. And then I looked at those 2 black kids at the back, and I thought to myself, if those 2 were put with Etienne and Nanai, and for you guys in South Africa who don't know who Etienne is, I'll try and put up a clip of him there, and you can see and you can tell me what you think of his footwork, because it's amazing. I thought if those 2 black kids were with Etienne, or if they were with Mosese Pepper, or if they were with Lester Whanganuku, or if they were with guys like that, or even James Stratton would be another one. I thought if Quinn Hayes, Etienne, and the 2 black guys on Paarl boys were all in a backline together, I was thinking, man, this would be amazing. I thought that would be massive. I also looked at the tall white lock, who was not Whitelock, but the tall white kid who was number 5, the tall lock, and I thought if I put him with Naito or with Tupou, and I thought how would these 3 make as locks, I thought yes, that would be massive. I would look at it and like that. Or if Keanu was with this prop or in this front row, I thought about it like that, and I thought, would they all fit together? Would that be something? Would Lincoln, with the first 5 of Paarl boys, be able to work it out with Folau or with Louis? And I thought, does that work? Like, would that look good? Would the style that everybody plays, would that all pan out right, and would that look good? And would they all play on the same level? To where is it? Because the fullback and the winger with Etienne, and I thought about the speed that they all worked at, the footwork that they all had, even with Mosese Pepper there, or with Leicester being how big he is, and I thought, okay, that's cool, because that would all work out. What if I had Lalu Milo up there in the centres with Hayes, or with Quinn, or with Nigel, or with guys like that? And I thought, how would this work out? How would this look? I even looked at Lemeki, and I thought, and the Paarl boys fellas would know that Lemeki was playing fullback, and he ripped them up. He really did. He broke the line 4 times, 3 times, 4 times, and they were for big gains. Now, I thought if Lemeki was there with the fullback and the winger, how good that would be, because Lemeki is going to be one of those New Zealand secondary school kind of players too, and he'll be in that conversation. So that's the way that I looked at it. Now, and what I've come to the conclusion is that I think South Africa as a whole has more better teams than we do. Way more better teams. Like I said, we'd only have 7 to 8 New Zealand teams in the top 25. They would take the rest. I think they have more better players than we do. I think we have the best players. If we were to rank them all together, I think that we would maybe take the first 3-4 spots. And I think as a whole, because South Africa is so spread out, we have the better competitions because we're smaller. Whereas those guys are all spread out, and then they have to sort of come into competitions all together, into like little mini tournaments and stuff like that, to play the best players, or else the ones around them are kind of are not up to their standard kind of thing. And so that's where I think that we get the best out of it, because we're a lot smaller, kind of more congested into areas where good teams can play other good teams, where they have to do it a different way. And so this is how I'm going to look at it, is that Paarl boys beat Sacred Heart, gave Gizzy boys a hiding, and then Sacred Heart and Gisborne boys will play each other this year, because they always have a traditional. Let's see how that goes, and then we could actually put a sort of a point on how good or bad the other one is. If Sacred Heart can get close to what Paarl boys did against Gizzy boys, then we can actually say, okay, Sacred Heart is actually in their league, or if not. And I'm sorry, Gizzy boys has to be the measuring point for this little exercise, but that's just the way that it is, because they play each other. So, that's what I'm going to look at for anyway. So, South Africans, keep a watch of High School Top 200 and all the players and all the teams and things like that. And then I'll try and keep everyone here up to date with the rankings that's going over there in South Africa, and everyone can have sort of a viewpoint and an opinion of their own of how they think it's all going. This is Top 200. Herschel, peace.